They just launched all the scooters this week, so they're back on the streets.
The scooters are back?
Talk about like number 2 in the nation. People covet the parks, you know?
Yeah.
Like people move here because of them.
People were playing Pokemon Go at that time.
Oh my
and
gosh.
It was like every park was packed. How do we bring back Pokemon Go? Like
Almost like a trailer with like video game systems in it, virtual reality, other things. But we're like going to pull up with that in random spots and start engaging young people around technology and careers that way.
the pitch has to be better than come into my trailer for some video
exactly,
games.
Exactly. It's not the big white van with no windows, you know. But yeah.
I have video games in here.
Yeah.
If you had a blank ticket, you could go unlimited Amex points travel.
I want to go to Tokyo. I've never been.
Yes.
But Tokyo would be amazing.
It's obviously also in the quote unquote ring of fire. We sometimes see like parks and stuff, just to bring it back to parks, on top of buildings and skyscrapers. You have like soccer courts on top of buildings. So I'm like,
Como's the crown jewel of St. Paul when it comes to parks. Like the regional park and the zoo, like the amount of visitors that we get in that space rivals anything in the metro. We're doing a hip hop series for young people. Whoever the winner is out of that equation will open for Nerdy later in the summer and other things. But
I'll drop my mixtape there.
there you go.
It'll set the whole park on fire.
You can MC. You got it. This would be great.
No. No one would ever come back to Mirrors Park. Welcome everyone to episode 19 of Weekly Deposit. We have a special guest with us today. He is the director of the St. Paul Parks and Rec, a lifelong resident of St. Paul, a community leader, a champion for youth after-school programs in recreation centers, has implemented the Tech for All initiative, and was appointed director by the friend of the show, Mayor Melvin Carter. Let's give a warm welcome to Andy Rodriguez.
Appreciate that. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you, Andy, for being here. Let's kind of dive right in. This is a question that we have on all of our guests we always ask, because me and Julian always love to travel. We always like to sightsee, get new ideas, new cultures. And so we always ask our guests, what's the last place you've been to? And what's the next place you want to go to? Preferably outside U.S., but it's okay if it's somewhere in the U.S. as well, too.
Yeah, the last place I was in was actually in Phoenix. I actually went there for the National Park Conference. So
okay,
very cool city. Got a chance to experience it, and it's always cool to see. I have a parks lens, obviously, from what I do. But kind of see how people do things a little differently over there. It was cool to network and see that city. Gosh, if I could travel anywhere.
Yeah. If you had a blank ticket, you could go unlimited Amex points travel.
I want to go to Tokyo. I've never been.
Yes.
But Tokyo would be amazing.
Yes.
Just for me, from a standpoint of traveling to that space, the technology,
the
culture, all of it would be awesome.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. So we'll start with Phoenix. What did you see in Phoenix that kind of gave you any ideas for anything here in their regards to parks and rec?
You know, what's interesting about Phoenix is they have so much land, a lot of desert, a lot of open space. So they've been able to create these mega athletic complexes out there. So like pickleball as an example, that's all the rage right now. That's all we hear about. But they literally have complexes with like 40 courts out there. Like we don't have the land in St. Paul to do something like that. But it's interesting to see how these cities that do kind of manipulate their space. It's super cool.
And it's a little different due to weather too, right? Exactly. They have their parks more all year round type, where our parks, for the most part, in the winter are kind of, not many people go unless there's like sledding or some sorts of winter activity.
Yeah, and the city's massive. It's so spread out.
Yeah.
And it's like they have like Phoenix and then surrounding cities, obviously like Scottsdale and others that...
Tempe.
Tempe that you can take the train to, and all are awesome cities.
Yeah, no, it's great. I was actually, I lived there for a couple of years. I was little, I don't remember it. But let's talk about Tokyo, because I am a huge anime fan, and I'm a huge just everything Japan fan.
That's awesome.
So like me and my brother, that is one of our goals, to go to Tokyo, and we sometimes see parks and stuff, just to bring it back to parks, on top of buildings and skyscrapers. You have like soccer courts on top of buildings. So I'm like,
like land bridges and other things like that. But that's that kind of unique urban planning, right? That you start to see outside of the U.S. That is really innovative. And we always end up being like a couple years or maybe even decades behind some of that innovative work. Like bike infrastructure as an example, what you see in other countries, how it lands over here over time, and then the debate around it. Is it effective, right? But yeah, Tokyo would be amazing. I'm a big fan of technology, and just pop culture, other things, fashion, sneakers, like all that stuff. And I feel like that is convergence in Tokyo that I would find pretty amazing.
And I think you hit the nail on the head with the urban planning, because they are probably one of the best in the world at that. They have a highly dense population in Tokyo. It's obviously also in the quote unquote ring of fire.
Right.
So they have to kind of think about that as well. And then, you know, how do we then get parks and this and that, bikes, especially. So I've watched a lot of videos on that stuff, the architecture, where things go, planning, public transportation, and it's very well thought out.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's really, really cool. So I agree on the sneaker part too. Sneaker fans, we did a little business highlight for a sneaker store here in Egan. So if you ever have time, check that out.
Yeah, well, for sure. Yeah, no, you nailed it on the urban planning piece, and just the amount of density in that space, and how you have to be creative with housing.
Correct.
And then the public amenities that exist out there to get people from A to B.
Yep.
And then obviously parks and open spaces that people can converge on and enjoy. So.
Yep. I went to Dubai recently, and they really, at first they were really bad at that, but now they've gotten a lot of great people in to kind of fix the urban planning of how the city works and stuff, because it just sometimes, you know, if you don't plan correctly, you're driving 30 minutes to get across the street. Yep. It's ridiculous.
Exactly. Yeah. Anytime I travel, like, my agenda is just to explore.
Yep.
I don't have a set agenda. Like, I just want to explore a major city.
Yep.
Walk around. Like, I remember going to San Francisco for the first time and just wandering, New York City, other things.
Yep.
New York City was funny. I wandered into, like, it was around the time Watch the Throne came out, Kanye West and Jay-Z.
Yep.
Somehow wandered into one of their music videos that were just happened to be going on at the time.
What? Which one?
God, I can't remember the song. Into the Wild, or what's it called?
Oh yeah, I think it is Into the Wild.
Yeah, that was the jam.
No Church in the Wild.
No Church in the Wild.
No Church in the Wild. Yeah, that was a good song. But that was a great album.
Yeah, it was. But that was the jam at the time, and all of a sudden I turned around the corner. I'm like, what is going on?
Could we see you in the video?
No.
Okay, so you know, you're the director of Parks and Recs here in St. Paul. What inspired you to pursue a career in Parks and Recreation Management, and how did you get started in that field?
You know, honestly, like, parks, rec centers, just in general, have always been a backbone of my life since a young age. Like, I was a kid that spent hours and hours at the rec center every day. And by the time I came 15, 16 years old, they were like, you're old enough to work here. Let's make it happen. And I never left after that. I wouldn't say it was something that I aspired to have a career in per se, but as always just been a stable part of my life, and a lot of mentors in the parks world and whatnot convinced me to go back to college and get my degree. And it's kind of been up from there. Served in a lot of different positions within the department. And, you know, when our previous director retired, he said to me, it's like, I referred your name as one of the names to the mayor for consideration, and you should really think about applying. And that was like kind of eye-opening for me, right?
Yeah.
Like, wow, I thought I was working at a high caliber. I didn't think I was working at that high of a caliber. So it was kind of a shock for me, but became a realization pretty quick going through that process. And then when I got that call from the mayor, I remember I was driving and I had to pull over, like, wow, this is real. This is really happening. But for me, like a kid of St. Paul, to be serving in this role is such an honor, man. It's so cool. Like, I'm a year in. It's been challenging, but super rewarding. And being able to help shape the park system, listen to community about their wants, their desires, and what they want to see for the future of their parks. It's an awesome experience. People covet the parks, you know, like, people move here because of them. And when you talk about, like, number 2 in the nation, that's one of the things that they evaluate on. What is the accessibility to parks? You live in your house. How close is a park to where you live? We have really good scores there.
We're in real estate, right? So we do real estate. I don't know if Brad, our mutual friend, has told you. We do real estate, so that is a huge thing. It's a walkable factor. Hey, how close am I to park, especially for families? How close am I to park? How close am I to a rec center? How close am I to other businesses? Walkable distance. Especially in the summertime.
For sure.
Your face lights up when you talk about parks and kind of, you know, the whole thing. So it seemed like it was just destiny.
It's been an awesome ride. It hasn't been without its challenges, you know, this first year, but, you know, it's very rewarding. And it's interesting how, like, parks experiences or what people want in their parks evolve. Like I mentioned pickleball earlier, like we're starting to see a desire for more like fat tire biking in regional parks and other just.
Is that from Brad?
Yeah, Brad's one of them. Yeah,
I was like, fat tire biking, there's probably a Brad. He calls it every day. Like, hey.
Yeah, gonna make this happen. It's funny. I have a lot of friends from high school or people I grew up with like, hey, what's up with this park? Or you gonna consider this? Like, you should do this. I'm like, thanks for the feedback. We'll see what happens. But yeah, it's cool to weigh those needs and plan for the future.
Yep. I mean, just a quick story of mine. So when we first moved to Cedar Riverside in the Broward Community Center, it used to be a baseball field in the park. And a majority of us would play baseball. And then as the Somalian population grew, they changed that baseball field to a soccer field because there were more of soccer players. And so now it's like a little soccer field and stuff like that. So that's really cool.
Yeah, that's a great example of how some amenities that were popular 10 years ago have evolved, right? Yep. And we start to see repurposing of spaces or implementing of new amenities. So yeah, absolutely.
So you talked about challenges, right? The role obviously comes with challenges. What are some of the biggest challenges facing the Parks and Recreation Department in St. Paul, and how do you guys plan on addressing them?
There are many. One I always point to is just how we serve our young people and how that continues to evolve. Like we can't wait for them to walk into the four walls of a rec center. Sometimes we have to go meet them where we're at. So we're looking at more mobile forms of recreation, going into neighborhoods, passive parks, bringing recreation services to them. We're in the process of purchasing a new technology truck that will essentially be almost like a trailer with like video game systems in it, virtual reality, other things. But we're going to pull up with that in random spots and start engaging young people around technology and careers that way, which is very innovative. You know, like
the pitch has to be better than come into my trailer for some video games.
Exactly. It's going to be branded. It's not the big white van with no windows, you know, but
I have video games in here.
It's a pretty cool setup, but we're working on things like that. That will be, is a very innovative approach. Right?
Yeah. I mean, we didn't have that obviously growing up because we didn't have the computer, the technology and stuff like that. But now I'm looking back, I'm like, man, I wish I would have had that, like coding abilities or games and stuff like that, because what kid isn't interested in like games and stuff? And that's such a great way to learn.
Well, tech is such a huge focus for us right now, and it's amazing what young people can do around this topic. Yeah, like I thought I was a tech proficient young person growing up, but this is just a different level with these kids. Like their ability to code and pick up things so quick.
It's a sponge. My son, he can work circles around me. So I sometimes play Fortnite. I'm not a good Fortnite player to everyone, so I sometimes play with him and stuff like that. And he's like, he does the build, and it's like his brain to like finger processing is like crazy. I'm like, what are you doing right now?
Right. So like competitive robotics, that's something we started with in the last year or two and really have gotten off the ground. But like to see like how invested those young people are in that program is just amazing. But like they compute it so quickly. It's like, we need to make this robot do this function. And it's like, knock it out. You know,
is that kind of where it came in for the implemented of the Tech for All initiative that you campaigned for?
Yeah, exactly. And that was a really initiative, or continues to be an initiative, where, you know, we want to build tech proficiency amongst young people. And a lot of young people don't know what tech career exists, right? Like tech is embedded in everything that we do nowadays. Like to drive a plow truck in the city of St. Paul requires some technology education and competence, and explaining that to young people has been very fascinating. We were just in a group with a bunch of young people about careers, but we didn't even realize it's like when they get into these work environments for us, like we have Microsoft Office products. They don't use Microsoft Office in high school anymore. They're Google Docs, they're tablets, they're all these things. And they're like, what the heck is this? Like, I don't know how to do this. It's like, who would have thought of that, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, most of our stuff here is on Google Docs, Google Spreadsheets. It's very similar, but it's because again, it's free, where Microsoft's charging you. Google's like, hey, here's some software and everything. And it's more inclusive to all, right? Exactly. Rather than like being the sports thing where, hey, you have to pay X amount of dollars to play. And some people, unfortunately, you know, due to their situations, they can't.
Yeah, it's been pretty amazing. I've gotten a strong education on esports too, which is just wild. Like there are scholarships you can get to go to college in esports, like to play video games.
Yeah.
Like it's that's pretty wild. And then the careers and things
Yep.
and where they.
Well, my son showed me some guy who plays Fortnite. His name was Ninja. I want to say Ninja.
Yeah.
The blue-haired kid. I think his last sponsorship deal or something was 20 million. So if 20 years ago you told me 20 million to play video games, I would have dropped. I was already dropping everything to play video games. So
yeah, we had a young person just fresh out of high school. He went through what we call his UX academy, so learning a lot of coding exercises, other things, making 70 grand right out of high school.
Nice.
It's just wild.
Yeah, that's awesome that you guys are doing that for the community, because it is very important, especially kind of with the job market changing, right? Like you said, there's tech in everything. So would you say those are some kind of key initiative or other projects that the department's currently working on? And
those are some key initiatives, but also like back to initiatives and challenges is just community first public safety. Like those rec centers and our parks are safe spaces, right? Over the past year, specifically in January, that was compromised with Oxford Community Center and having shooting in that space. Never had a shooting at a rec center in my career.
Yeah.
But that was impactful. And unfortunately during that time, that shooting, it happened to be an employee that pulled the trigger, which was wild.
Yeah.
For us to absorb, it rocked our department. Like those are significant challenges that we had to get through. We were closed for a month, and when it involves young people and employees, like that's a very traumatic experience. But focused on healing, how we build back trust with the community, what can we do differently when we do reopen to assure people that this is a safe space. And we did reopen recently, and it's been great.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear that it reopened. And when I went to Brian Coyle and everything, I always thought about it as like the safest place I could be. Yeah. I remember, so like the adults there are safe. Like even if there was some trouble between kids brewing, they would never do stuff there because they didn't want to be like expelled from the community center.
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, they love coming there to play basketball stuff. So even if like, okay, we'll fight later, like over there, somewhere away from the Coyle Community Center and stuff like that. So, no, it always felt like a great safe space. And I think it's sad because it was, employed, but normally normally the employees are so great at the parks. They're so, I mean, my early mentors all came from Brian Coyle.
Yeah, same. I mean, my mentors came from various rec centers or different parts of the park system. But yeah, those frontline staff, they do a lot to serve young people. And it's not just handing out basketballs and all those things. There are life skills taught in that place. There's mentorship. There is life
friendship.
coaching, friendship.
Yeah.
All those things, all the above. They do so much work.
They do. Shout out to my good friend, one, Brian, his name was Brian. The other one, Tally. I mean, they took us the first time, we're some, ghetto apartment kids. We went camping for the first time ever. We like that. So like other stuff, Tally was so great for the community. Like if someone asked him like, hey, I'm trying to make the basketball team. He's like, okay, come every morning. Cause he was a great basketball player. Come every morning. I'll shoot drills with you. I'll do this with you. Like just to this day, I still like, so appreciative of his friendship, his mentorship and his guidance to kind of not do, because the one thing, and I think we could agree, is if you give kids time and boredom and bad things can happen.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's a great example. It's like that consistent form of mentorship and support, right?
Yep.
Always there, like stable face that you see every day when you visit.
Yep.
That means a lot, and that it builds lifetime memories for people like yourself.
Yes, because I remember we used to have two coaches for baseball and football and all this, two James. So James Brown and James Tucker. And it was like good cop, bad cop. So, James Brown would be like the good cop. He'd kind of like sold us this, that. And James Tucker was just tough love, like tough, like, and we needed both. It was like the mother, father, like it was amazing. And it kept us, all the people I talk to now still from that place, it kept us away from a lot of bad stuff that was happening around us. Unfortunately, we're inner city kids. A lot of bad stuff was happening, but that really guided us to do well.
Yeah, for sure. I always say I don't know where I would be without the park system support that I've had throughout my entire lifetime. Like,
yeah,
it's kind of wild to think about.
Which rec center did you go?
I grew up at a bunch of them. I spent a lot of time up at Linwood Rec Center, which is not far from here, Highland Park, Northwest Como, Oxford, Jimmy Lee, like kind of bounced around to many, but I was known across those spots. Like they knew me just because I was there so much, you know.
And now you're the director.
Yeah.
It all comes full circle.
Yep.
What role do you see parks and recreation playing in promoting health, wellness, social equity in St. Paul, and how are you working to advance these goals through your programs and services?
Yeah, with 180 parks, 26 rec centers, golf courses, we have a zoo. All those things contribute to those goals, right? But the big thing is accessibility. When you talk about equity and making sure that we have a level playing field across the city, whether it's through program offerings, that the program offerings at Frogtown are the same are the same as Highland, right? Everyone's getting the same product. That's the goal. But also what we just talked about, right? It's like that mentorship, that other piece, and making sure that people have positive experiences in our spaces, and then building out new parks for the future. So when you think of like Highland Bridge that just got done, we're opening our 3rd park there this summer, but continuing to expand our system to meet the needs of the community.
That's awesome. Yeah, it is. And what would you say in regards to like the promoting health part, right? Especially in this day and age where you know everyone's health conscious, especially going through like the last 2 years of the pandemic, where maybe parks didn't get to have the visitors that it normally does. How do parks correlate with, you know, health too? Because obviously getting kids out there to play and stuff, getting them, even though the games and that stuff is all good in regards to potentially a career, but also having them be outside, because that's what we used to do. We used to, you know, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have this, that. We didn't have cartoons on demand. I couldn't just YouTube something.
Yeah, it's multifaceted, I think, for all ages, right? We like to call it in our world like unstructured use within our system. So it's like we have the bike trails or the running trails, or, you know, our big regional parks or passive parks where people can recreate and get physical activity in. Then for our young people, we have more controlled experiences that we can offer them. Not all of them participate in it, but, you know, we can try and meet that need that way, whether that's through like fitness-based classes within the rec centers or in our passive parks. It makes me think of our free fitness in the parks program that we do in the summer, which is just spreading out, working with local fitness partners, businesses across the city to offer free classes. So it's like we're out in Mears Park doing yoga in the mornings, and it's free drop-in. There's no cost, right?
Oh, okay.
Like that type of accessibility for people is what I think is valuable and contributes to your question. Yeah.
Yes, no, wholeheartedly. And I love Mears Park. It's such a beautiful park, and especially in the summertime when it's really flowing. I remember the time when I went there and people were playing Pokemon Go at that time.
Oh my
and
gosh.
It was like every park was packed. How do we bring back Pokemon Go? Like it was like packed, I'm telling you.
What a wild time that was.
What a wild time. Like from senior citizens down to like they were all just like this on their phone walking around.
Our former park director didn't understand that phenomenon at first. Still plays that game.
Oh, does he?
Like he's bought in.
Yeah.
But that was a wild time. Like Rice Park was the spot. Like you would go there at any given time in the evening, and there'd be like 200 people there, all on their phones, just catching Pokemon. It was crazy.
Yes, every part. Like I remember I went to the Stone Arch Bridge, just packed. Or like, and then people would tell people like, "Oh, there's a Charizard over here, or this or that." Like, and it's just like a gathering. And Mears Park, I'm telling you, everyone was on their lunch break, so there's like food trucks and there's thing, and everyone's just kind of playing. I was like, man, this is so cool. And then like, unfortunately, the pandemic happened, so then a majority of the Mears Park at least was a little bit more.
What a wild time that was.
Yep, that was a wild time. And then the zoo you mentioned, that's Como Zoo?
Como Zoo, yep.
I love, till this day, Como Zoo is free.
Yep, Como Zoo is free. I mean, and that is one of the appealing things about it, obviously. One of the most busiest locations in the state, maybe even the region in terms of visits. I think it's 85% of their visitorship is from outside of the city too, which is wild.
Yep. I love the Como Park, the Como Zoo, the greenhouse, like everything. I'd still to this day take my kids, and anytime I have visitors from outside the state, family, I always take them there too.
Yeah, Como's the crown jewel of St. Paul when it comes to parks. Like the regional park and the zoo, like the amount of visitors that we get in that space rivals anything in the metro.
Yep,
it does, and it's people covet that space so much, and the accessibility and access to it is what makes it.
Okay, Andy, how do you measure the success and impact of, department programs and services? Like, what metric do you guys use to evaluate the effectiveness of parks or what you put in the parks? How does that get measured? Because you mentioned earlier that you guys are number 2 in the nation for parks. Yep. What is that? How does that measurement come in?
Yeah, there's a lot of variables there. When you talk about programs, you're talking about consistent program evaluation methods, just, the qualitative feedback of hearing from young families and others about the product that they participated in, mm-hmm. how whether or not that continues based off that feedback. Mm-hmm. Then we have a lot of tools that we use. Like, we have dedicated positions within the Parks Department to measure program evaluation. We call them like youth program quality assessments. Mm-hmm. So that's, gauging the program's effectiveness or young people's kind of perception of it. Did they like the staff? Did they think that one of them were rude? Mm-hmm. Things like that, that we get evaluated on, which is cool. But that helps with kind of how our program is driven into the future and whether or not it continues. Mm-hmm. But overall park use, when you talk about like spaces like Como Regional Park or the river, like activating those amenities and, just assessing volume, really. We jokingly say in the Parks Department, like the amount of requests for porta potties in specific park spaces tells us the level of use. Because we get requests for those left and right every day. It's funny.
Do you, so walk me through, like, how can I put it? What if I really wanted to play, pickleball or this or whatever? I want a jungle gym or whatever. How does that one go about requesting that, and how then is it implemented? Is there have to be enough people, like a petition type thing, or how does that work?
It's usually how those things start. It's very organic, right? Like there's a mobilization within community to say, we want this playground replaced, right? Yep. We know that we need to replace it. It's 40 years old, but really those voices, if you can mobilize within community, helps advance those projects and, talking with your council member, your park director and others, and really trying to advocate for funding is where it starts. We're working towards a project revitalization at Dunning Park, right next to Central High School, where we might see that play area replaced this year in cooperation with private partners and philanthropic donors and others to get it done sooner. But that's how it starts. I mean, we have a project proposal process that people can vision out ideas and submit to us. But really, it starts with mobilization of community or that one person that wants to be persistent and champion a project, right?
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything request-wise you've gotten that you're just like, no, that's too crazy?
Not too crazy. I think, everyone has good ideas. It's just how we get them to become a realization of those ideas. Like, we're trying to build what's called a pump track along the river. So like a bike course with hills and other things. And that was a community-based idea. And it's going to come to life at some point here pretty quick. I'm
excited to see that. Here is one thing I know. This was kind of a more state thing, and it's a more privatized thing where those bikes were the bike share. Yeah, they're gone now.
Yeah.
And that really left a hole in my heart because I loved going out there, and if I didn't bring my own bike, and me and a couple of buddies would just rent a bike and kind of ride around.
I'll break some good news there. It's like I think we're making progress to get those to come back.
Yes,
through a different vendor. So we just launched all the scooters this week, so they're back on the streets.
The scooters are back.
The scooters are back. Nice. So you'll start to see like the limes and spins and all that stuff.
I like the scooters, but I like being physical. Right, like me actually pedaling and getting some type of workout rather than just like an electric thing. So me personally, again, other people are like, I like the scooters, but
but some of those scooter companies also do like bike shares. And I know the city is actively working with one of those vendors to try and make something happen sooner than later.
I would love that because some of the best times I've had is either scooter or biking down the river and kind of just riding through Shepherd Road and this and that. So seeing the river, especially during fall when everything's kind of leaves are changing. So I really wanted to talk. I was like, I love this program, but then they got, rid of it for whatever, I think sponsorship wise.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly, but I know St. Paul is making strides to get it to come back for sure.
Awesome.
In a different form.
Well, I can't wait. I wish the bikes were a little bit better than like regular beach cruisers because those things in the hills.
Man. The exercise.
Yeah. St. Paul is, they have a lot of hills and stuff. It's like, oh my God, it's only one speed. So you're just like
churning.
Yeah. You're like, man. But when you're going down, it's a great time.
Yeah, for sure.
Looking ahead, what are some key priorities and goals for the Parks and Recreation Department in St. Paul? And And what are your plans to achieve those goals?
There are many. One amenity focused point I'll highlight is the need for more skate parks across the city. We have a handful, less than 5 in the city, and that's such an emerging sport. It was in the Olympics.
Skateboarding,
It was in the Olympics recently, but how do we build that out across the city in a strategic way? You'll likely see a skate park on the east side within the coming years. We're going to try and get Merriam Park redone. I would love to have a skate park in downtown St. Paul somewhere.
That would be cool.
But yeah, it's another example of a priority. Bigger picture, it's like we need stability in our funding for our park system to keep it the premier status that it is. So we're looking at creative ways to do that. We started up the Parks Conservancy a couple of years ago, which is essentially a nonprofit version or extension of our department that will help support and get some projects done sooner rather than having to rely solely on city funding. So looking at those strategic visions and then really building out partnerships with our professional sports teams as a means to promote, work together, and fund new projects. So like the Minnesota United last year helped to renovate a field on the east side and put irrigation in and new turf and all that stuff. But those public-private partnerships are huge for us.
No, nice. That's great of Minnesota United. It's always great when the sports teams, you know, come back and give to the community that they're.
It's great. I met with the Timberwolves this morning. Actually, they're going to do some community camps this summer for us and focus on obviously basketball, but life skills too for young people. And it's always powerful when those agencies show up. In that space, and obviously kids turn out for that with players and other things showing up.
Oh, of course.
Memorable experience, right?
Yeah,
I get to meet Karl Anthony Towns or whoever it is.
Yeah, whoever it is. Yeah,
that's
exactly.
there, and it's like that's such an impactful experience for young people.
No, for sure is. Skate parks, that's crazy you say that because like when I was growing up, it was like illegal to skate in parks. Like remember that time? Like it was like
how it was so frowned upon, right?
Frowned upon. I was like, and I never got it why, but it
like security guards chasing you out of the property.
I remember when Lupe made that kick push song.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So that's a good example. It's like I tried to skateboard in my junior high days. It was limited success, but I thought I was a little bit of a poser there. But yeah, it's emerged so much, and Minneapolis has done a good job in building out their skate parks and things. And you know, Third Layer, who's a very recognized entity in the skateboarding world here in Minnesota, St. Paul, the region, they just moved over here. Right next to Tono, actually, in St. Paul. So they just opened up a shop. Yeah, it's called After Hours Skate Park or Skate Shop. So
yes, we love Tono over here. We actually had one of the owners on a couple of weeks ago, and we're having the other owner on next week. So that's awesome. Yeah, Third Layer. I remember. I think this one of the skate parks I've seen. It's not a big one. It's kind of like in a parking lot, but at Calhoun they have like a little skate park.
Yeah, so they transitioned that space, right? Like and kind of did a temporary skate park over there, and that's kind of a mimic of an idea that they did that we did here in St. Paul. We're at Palace Community Center. We have a refrigerated ice rink, which is just a concrete slab in non-winter months. So it's like let's turn this into a skate park. So.
It's the creativeness that I like. It's like, how do we change this space into multi-use? That's awesome. Do you have any kind of, actually, no, this is a good question. What's your favorite park and why?
I like Crosby Regional Park. That's just on the lower end of Highland Park in St. Paul. It's it almost feels like you're in a different place when you go there. It's so serene. It's acres and acres of natural wildlife out there and other things, but it just feels like you're in a different place within the city. You get lost in there. It's pretty cool.
What do you like to do over there? Biking or anything?
Biking, just walking around. You get to be by the river, near the river, touch the river, all those things. You can see Minneapolis from the other side. So wave to the rivals over on the other side of the river. But yeah, it's a cool space, man. And it's easy to get lost in there and just kind of, enjoy nature.
Okay, so Crosby
Regional Park. Yep.
Crosby Regional Park. Okay, I got to go there. And then let's say if you could add any type of statue to any park in the city, what would it be and why?
A statue?
Yeah, a statue. Just someone that you think deserves one in the city.
I want to honor all the baseball legends in St. Paul. There's so much history. And you talk about like the Paul Molliters, the Joe Mauers, the Dave Winfields, Steve Winfields. Like there's so much rich history in baseball. Like I want to create something that recognizes all of them.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so we're toying with that idea and what we could maybe do to renovate the Tony Stone Stadium, which is our premier baseball stadium in the city, but also recognizing all those players at the same time. But you can get into this debate of what qualifies a person as a St. Paul baseball legend. Well, what about this person or what about that? But those are the core names that I know.
Gotcha. They have to, born, raised, or something here. Obviously. Yeah, we have the Saints Stadium not too far from here, and we always like looking in. And actually, I think they had their home opener yesterday.
They did. Yeah. So the Saints are a great partner to the Parks Department. We helped facilitate getting that deal done to build the stadium and other things years and years ago. But we work very closely with them, and they're working through their transition of ownership right now. And things, so.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, we actually kind of go catch a couple of games, especially when the weather's nicer. From our view, we can see who's on second and third and everything like that. What are some other things that you would like to kind of add to parks that you guys see in regards to is there certain sports that you're seeing grow in? Because like I mentioned earlier, right, when the Somali population increased in Cedar Riverside, it transformed from a baseball field to a soccer field. But is there other things where you're seeing hey, there's a lot of people doing this now, or similar to the Arizona pickleball? I didn't know there was a huge increase in pickleball, but
yeah, pickleball is one. That's one we're trying to develop a strategy citywide for, where we can put dedicated courts or maybe transition existing tennis courts that are low use into pickleball. But also, lacrosse is another one. That we've tinkered with over the years, but are trying to get off the ground.
How does that work in regards to the equipment?
Yeah, that equipment is something that we would purchase and support for young people that want to participate. That's part of if there was a registration fee, what that would cover. So we provide that. But yeah, that's something that we're trying to build more interest around specifically there. Tackle football is another one that's evolved over time. You've probably heard about safety and other things, but that's one that we're continue to try and toy with. And what is the best solution? Our flag football numbers have skyrocketed.
Yes.
Our tackle football numbers have been somewhere in the middle to low, right? Just because of safety and other things that are going around.
I mean, personally, as a parent, I would have my son play flag football.
Yeah.
Just it is what it is, rather than when he's growing up and everything like that. I don't need him getting tackled. But yeah, you're right. Flag football, we actually have an adult flag football league we run. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's a good transition, is also more adult athletic opportunities. We have amateur baseball programs and other things that are tailored towards adults, open volleyball, sand volleyball leagues, things like that.
Where can people find these things, Andy? If I wanted to join a league, or if my son, our St. Paul residents, right? You mentioned that all the kids have free sports activities. How does one go? Where do they need to go? Where do they need to sign up? How to make it as simple as possible for people?
I'd say the simplest option is stpaul.gov/parks.
Okay.
You can subscribe to our newsletter every Friday afternoon. It hits with all the different things that we're doing across the city. Very comprehensive list of things. We do a lot, so it's easy for information to get lost in the shuffle if you're not a subscriber or other things. But then our social media channels too.
Okay.
St. Paul Parks and Recreation on Facebook or Twitter, in addition to the city channels as well.
Okay, perfect. So people can kind of find that. And then a little bit more about, because this is such a great program and I love it that you guys are doing this, is that whole free for kids. What does that entail? How 18 and under, what sports, stuff like that? What is that?
Yeah, for ages 10 and up.
10 and up.
10 and up. So that's 10 is kind of the threshold where you start to get into the rec center versus rec center kind of mentality, right? Where you're traveling every week. And probably an 8 to 10 week program. But we have established registration periods for each season. The upcoming one will be fall. So that'd be tackle football, soccer, other things. And then summer, we always have baseball, softball, and other things there. Soccer is pretty popular for us. Flag football in the fall as well.
Minnesota's always been a soccer kind of state, which is,
Yeah. And there's so many different club agencies and other things that we partner with too, like the St. Paul Blackhawks, the Sana Foundation. Soccer is huge.
Yeah, it is.
Across the city.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, I live by Blaine now, I used to live in Minneapolis, but I live by Blaine. But obviously the National Sports Center. Yeah, and we used to play in the USA Cup over there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, a bunch of people from different countries would come in, and you know, from Sweden, this, that, and we would play against them. So that was always a cool like experience.
Yeah, that's an interesting part of so that complex is huge, right?
Yes, it is.
And a lot of our athletes or families travel out to Blaine or the suburbs to participate in these tournaments, right? Mm-hmm. So one of the kind of goals that we as a Parks Department are trying to do is build an athletic complex in St. Paul.
That would be awesome.
And trying to find the land or where we can do it. I mean, you kind of need like a 20 plus acre plot of land to really make something happen. But where can we put all these different soccer fields or multi-use turf fields and a field house with 4 gyms or 4 courts and just really have a destination athletic complex to keep people or bring people into St. Paul.
That would be wonderful, man. I think that would be really, really cool. Andy, thank you so much for your time. We really enjoyed all the insight you gave us. Like, there was a lot of stuff I had no idea what goes into parks because I usually just go there. Either I'm playing in it or my kid's playing in it, and we don't think like all the, you know, the minutiae and detail that goes into it. Right. The budgeting, like you mentioned, how to keep the rec centers going and where the money comes from. And,
absolutely.
And you know, sometimes being creative in ways to find space and change space over time. So that is so insightful for our viewers and our listeners. And I just want to thank you a lot for your time because I know you're a busy guy.
Oh, absolutely, man.
You had to meet with a bunch of people. So we would love to have you back when a couple more of those, especially in the summertime. Maybe we can do, I don't know how the equipment works, but maybe we can do a podcast in like a rec center or a park. That would be really, really cool.
Yeah, we're going to do some cool events this summer too. So maybe we can link you up with that. We're going to try and do a concert at Mears, actually.
Yes, it does have that concert. Yeah. When was the last concert that was held there? I know that like the pandemic really screwed up a lot of things, especially Mears Park, because I used to love.
Yeah, last summer they did like Jazz Fest and other things. But like, the Parks Department is going to try and sponsor a couple hip hop events there this summer. We're doing a hip hop series for young people that can apply to perform at the park, and then whoever the winner is out of that equation will open for Nerdy later in the summer and other things. But yeah, we're trying to rock that place a little more this summer. So.
Nice. I'll drop my mixtape there.
There you go.
It'll set the whole park on fire.
You can MC. We got it. This would be great.
No. No one would ever come back to Mears Park. Thank you. Yes. And would love to have you on again. Thank you for your time and continue the great work. Everyone, please subscribe, like, comment on what you love about your park, the park that you kind of went to growing up, or if you go there now, what's your favorite thing about your park or the rec centers? Because I think what me and Andy said is like the mentorship, friendship, the bonds you create there are everlasting. So we'd love to hear from you guys. Again, comment, like, subscribe. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you back on episode 20.
Okay, thanks.
See you guys.